that's where we're at with things. Looks like they had a great lunch last night here. Must have been quite a party, but things are a little bit more sedate this morning. So I'm having trouble waking up this morning, so I'm going to try to give you your money's worth, but whew, boy, what a day. Okay, well, we were leaving things going into talking about different viruses after looking at how they go in and out of phage cells, how lysing regular phage is different than doing lysogenic cycle. We talked about getting in and out of animal cells. And we also talked a little bit about, the differences in pace and differences in genome. Those kinds of things should be somewhere bubbling around in your conscious at this point. And now we say, well, let's do a survey. Okay, at least I'm saying this. I'd like to do a survey. Yeah, can we cover all the viruses? No way. Is this a course in virology? I wish. I find that the virus chapters really hold people's attention amazingly well. People are just amazed about viruses. And for me, the single most amazing thing is that we're all still here to still study them, the more that I learn about them. So, but we can't do all that in a general course, so let's look at a few of the popular ones. Probably most of these you've heard of. But maybe we'll give a little bit more information, define it better in your head, tie it to some things in history maybe that help make them more relevant. And we started out by talking about Johannes Salk's idea of saying, well, look, I get this idea from Jenner and other people that you can put viruses into other animals, even if those animals are people, and that they will elicit a response that will help that person's defense system go against full development of the disease, which can be anything from feeling bad to death, depending upon it. And with polio, it can reach that range. Now, Jenner was trying something else with the pox virus, but in a way, this is a similar idea. And Johannes Salk said, well, if you get a polio virus into the system, the immune system will have a chance to develop different parts of memory in the innate and basic immune systems, and maybe it won't be so bad. And then his idea was simply, well, it's a virus. Let's hit it with formaldehyde. The capsid is protein, and we can make that protein so it doesn't work really well as far as the virus being viable. And this is the hope. This is the big risk, right? But still, there'll be enough of that capsid around, enough signal to tell the immune system, watch out for this stuff, and help people guard against it. So when, the real viable polio virus shows up, it's either not as bad or just does not get a good hold on the host, which is like humans. It was a good idea, and it worked. It really helped a lot, okay? And looking back at so many of these discoveries, looking back at from our perspective here in 2016, we go like, well, I know about formaldehyde. I've seen preserved cats. We talked about it a little bit on Tuesday. That's not that big of a deal. I could have thought of that. Yeah, you probably could have. You just didn't. And we have that. We have that wonderful perspective of standing up on the mountain, looking down because we're all so smart now. But we have other challenges that we have to keep climbing and trying to meet. Sabin said, well, it's iffy. One of the ways to make vaccines is to put a form of the virus into the host. Okay. The iffiness about that is you got to hope that virus, they're small. There's lots of them that they don't express. Okay. And with Salk said there was some concern about that going in and altering the RNA transfer to the host. We know how it has to. Get a plus sense and express itself. If you stop that, that stops the mechanism, and that was a pretty insightful thing. So the WHO, unlike the British rock band, the World Health Organization, started to get polio under control, and actually, polio was one of the first synthetic viruses that were manufactured once people started to be able to learn how to not only make, string amino acids together, but learn how to fold them and so forth. And so people started going after viruses a lot early in our molecular age that we're in. It was easier to go after their genome, it was easier to work with the proteins and so forth. And Sabin's type of vaccine was very effective. It reduced from 350,000 to 1,000 in 20-some years. That's pretty amazing, okay? So it not only represented a wonderful benefit to humankind, okay, but it's one of these breakthroughs, where people are, we can do this. We have been doing, we can do it better. We have an approach as well as, a means of defense. You can't really say it's a cure, because it's not like you're doing surgery or curing a disease. You're doing a preventative action. Okay, so pretty neat thing. Here's one we all know about, pneumotropics. So we know it's a fancy way of saying where polio was neurotropic. Pneumonic system is air. Okay, so and we know cold, runny nose, that kind of thing prefers human cooler temperature. I put something on the web about how cold temperatures and viruses interact. They become Alex, how's it go that it becomes more soluble with cold? In one case, in heat, they bounce like little balls. Was that how?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we were talking because, and I should tell you, people are starting to give me stuff to post. Alex posted a really cool thing about viruses and how they may set up defenses, and I posted that. I asked for permission, and hearing none, I went ahead and did it. So I hope you don't mind. But it's a cool article, and other people can post other cool articles. Anyway, this idea, now they're still looking at this. I mean, okay, we're sitting here, again, at this mountaintop of 2016. You still get colds all the time, and people say, what are the cures they tell you for colds? What do you do? I mean, you do probably the same as the rest of us. You feel miserable, you go to the drugstore, what do they try to give you? Well, a lot of orange juice, okay? I think orange juice, I always thought that orange juice is a good thing. Cough drops have zinc in it. Yeah, I saw that when I was doing a postdoc in New York, and I started thinking, well, zinc, but zinc's a heavy metal. I don't know if I want to eat too much of that. What else do you guys do for colds? Or just wait it out, or? You guys, anyone get a cold here? Maybe you are the new generation. You don't get colds. I get colds all the time, But I'm old and decrepit, and my immune system sucks. Yeah.
Lots of sleep.
Lots of sleep. Lots of fluids, clear in, clear out, try to rinse it out. Okay, but all those, whether you're being reserved or not, all those things for the cold, are kind of home remedy kind of things. It's not like we're taking the cold capsule or getting the cold shot yet. So this is kind of interesting. It's something that's out there that maintains a reservoir in our society and starts to express itself with cold weather, and people are looking at that a lot more. That what is that mechanism about cold and damp? That also leads to the cold, the disease cold. So, but it certainly is a virus. We let it run its course, and then we try to get on with it, just get better. Not unlike a mild case of diarrhea. We don't go running to the doctor for that. It's bacterial. But, we kind of let it run its course. Some things we just do. If it doesn't kill us, we think it may make us stronger. It may just go away and leave us alone. People are looking at the mechanisms. I mean, now that you can get down to the molecular item, I mean, it hasn't gone away. It's probably not at the forefront of what people are worried about. I don't know about you. I'm really worried about things like AIDS and where that'll all go. And that's a different virus that kills people. Colds aren't quite that dramatic, at least to my knowledge. They're just kind of uncomfortable. Okay, hepatitis, viscerotropic. Okay, it affects your viscera, which is basically your organs. Okay, and when you see hepatitis, hepatic, all those words, as you probably know, mean something to do with the liver. With hepatitis, there's a lot of different ones, A's, B's, you know, different complexes and so forth, almost like that. But in this case, hepatitis A plus strand RNA, so right away that should be saying to you, oh wow, that's one of those little small strands that can get in and go right to work. Okay, that's kind of what that should be signaling to you. You get different symptoms because your liver starts to not function right. Jaundice. Okay, jaundice is a condition. It can be related to things like malaria or anything that makes the liver stop working right. But basically, you're getting bile that's leaking into the blood and therefore coming close to the surface of the skin, and you start to take on a yellow complexion in some cases. It does break down, but you know, you want bile in your liver. You don't really want it coursing around your fingertips and stuff. Where can you get hepatitis? Infected water, and with infected water, raw shellfish is very popular. Oysters, mussels. You know, people like to eat raw. Who likes raw oysters? You know? Good. It doesn't do it for me. I can give some very terrible analogies about me and oysters, but or not analogies, but stories. But yeah, and it's a delicacy. It's really great. People love it, but you know, it depends upon, you know, again, where they're coming from, the time of year. It's one way of really getting a big bolus of either a virus or sometimes a bacteria. Symptoms, well, if your liver's not working good, you feel sick. Well, we're going to see that for everything. The first thing your body does is like, okay, I feel bad. I'm going to try to get rid of it. So it's either go one end or the other. So that's kind of goes with it. And then your body starts to fight against it, not only with headaches, but as it goes on, you don't feel like eating, you know, because your liver's not working. So, the problem, you know, whereas there's predisposition for some disease, can pretty much happen to everybody. Vaccines are available. This is just a side note. Sometimes we get this mixed up with hepatitis B, which is a DNA virus that has to do with, well, it's a STD, sexually transmitted disease. So our focus for right now is hepatitis A. Okay, rabies. Rabies has got, you know, this is just the way of biology. You say, well, the viruses look like this or this, and then you get rabies that kind of looks like this bullet. Okay, I don't know if this capsid has anything to do with the way that it expresses itself, but that is one heck of an interesting complex virus. I think most people know about rabies in general. I mean, rabies exists. They're around here. They can be around anywhere. Okay, they're transmitted by warm-blooded mammals, and the big thing is, try not to have things bite you and get saliva in your blood. Okay, well at first that sounds like, oh, that should be pretty easy to do. I usually don't go around and get bit by stuff, but but the problem with rabies is that the animals that have it, they are going insane. Their brain is not working right, and where a fox might run, this poor little guy might run the other way, with an insane rotting brain going on, they might actually see you as a threat and come and bite you. The classic one, and people always bring bats into show. Hey, I found this bat laying on the sidewalk, and for me that's just kind of like the big signal, like, oh no, how did you pick it up, and all those kind of things. Bats like to live without you. I mean, they're happy to fly around you and maybe scare you at Halloween, but bats shouldn't be sitting around where you can get them. When you find a bat on the ground, something is not going right. Now, maybe the bat somehow got his radar short-circuited, he ran into a brick wall or something. We see that with the birds migrating all the time. Around here we have all these windows, you find all the dead birds. I put up the pictures of the hawks. They fly away. I don't like birds that break their necks, unnecessarily at least. there's little birds flying home and stuff. So, but bats, that could happen. But, chances are, something could be wrong. Okay, so I'm probably preaching to the choir, but if you see bats and people who like bats and stuff, you gotta pick them up. Use gloves or a jar or something. Just don't pick up a bat, because their little teeth are like little needles. Okay, and they really, don't take much for a bat to nip you and knock you out. The thing about polio is this. Not polio, excuse me, rabies. The thing about rabies is if you get it and you don't treat it, it's not like you have a high chance of walking away from it. It's not like one of those things, well, my natural defense will just take over. I'm a natural guy. No, no. You're probably going to die, and it's going to be a really not a very fun kind of death, because you go crazy and parts of your body stop working. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, saliva, urine, and blood. And saliva, we think of drool and stuff, but people have picked up rabies. These guys that go what's the name when they go in the caves? Spelunking? Spelunking? Spelunking. Okay, spelunkers have picked up rabies because you get into some of these places with a lot of bats. They're urinating in the air and breathing and stuff, and they pick it up through their lungs. They don't get bit. So, people now know about it, but it came as a surprise. Well, I was just going down in this dark hole in the earth, not knowing if I'll ever live again, but I got rabies, people are figuring out more. So, incubation, it is variable, okay? Most of the time, if you're getting it into the bloodstream through a hypodermic needle called a tooth, it's going to express itself pretty fast. Not all the time. Bottom line, you get bit by something that shouldn't be biting you, go get it checked out right away. Okay, we'll talk a little more about that. So, symptoms. Okay, tingling and burning. Yeah, we have a little. I love this French picture of things. I don't know if it still works. This dog bites this guy who's by this tree or something, and then the rabies goes into the bite. Eventually, it goes up to his brainstem, and there it is in French, of course. It's explaining this to you. That I think so. It says. Try saying, will this guy ever be? No, but you see how it goes in the brain. So what happens? Tingling, burning, coldness at the bite site. Yeah, well, you're bit. So okay, I get that. Fever, headache, overall alert with tension. Okay, your nervous system is now starting to go on a little bit of a high awareness. This is the thing, the paralysis of the pharynx. You can't swallow. So this foaming mouth thing, it isn't like the little fox wants to foam at the mouth. It's trying to swallow. First off, it doesn't like water, and it can't swallow. So it's a double whammy on that. So you get this condition of hydrophobia. Okay, you react to water you don't want, and also the muscles around the pharynx have constricted, and trying to swallow isn't working very well either, and so thus the frothing idea. It's not just froth is bubbling out of the lungs or something like some people have talked about. So, base of the brain, that's kind of it. Treatment has changed. My father, before the end of his life, which was not caused by rabies, got bit by a squirrel. He was a nice guy. He's feeding this little squirrel, and the squirrel comes up and grabs him and bites him. And he goes like, well, that's not right. Those squirrels usually don't bite. And so he got him checked, and he got away with a few shots, as you can see here. Before that, it was a shot that they give it right in a circle, and it was lipophilic, so they used the belly fat. You would insert it, and every few days, you do another one. And what you're trying to do is chase the virus down, and keep it moving slowly into your system, and knock it out with the vaccine, while making your body understand what you're trying to do with these shots. So the vaccine is effective. If you're bit, or someone that got bit, the best thing to do, A, get them to the hospital or something. Oftentimes, if you can, it's not always practical, but if you can find the animal that did the biting, what happens is they can get a proof positive on the vector. Okay, now, sometimes not possible, you know, a big wolf comes out of the forest and lops off your leg and runs back, and you're probably not gonna be able to chase it or something, but, you know, the squirrel, they got the squirrel, they figured it out. My dad's case, it was okay, but, you know, I mean, here's just a guy sitting at home, you know, he's not like, you know, out, you know, doing odd things, and rabies came to his door. Okay, this is a fascinating study for me, okay? I really am interested in the flu, kind of like that whole thing about typhoid Mary that we'll talk about when we get to bacteria. There's a few things in history that absolutely amaze me, and this is one of them. What amazes me about this flu is that even at that time, people got flu. You know, they felt lousy, and they kind of, you know, made their way through it, and kind of like what a lot of us try to do. You know, that's the way I was brought up. Well, you got the flu, you feel lousy, you puke for a while, drink some chicken soup, go back to work. You know, it's kind of that kind of thing. But in this case, the flu came, it got some people, okay, they did okay, but then it mutated, and it wiped out a lot of folks. Have you guys studied the flu in any great amount? If not, I'd like to go through some slides, I'm kind of fascinated with that. I thought I'd share the flu with you as kind of a case study, because like Bonica and I always talk about, it's just amazing that the next virus that comes through, it can mutate and knock out so many people. How does that happen? You know, when you look at the 7 deadliest microbes, probably you should look at that slide after we did the Jeopardy thing. Oh, I should probably pay attention to that. You saw bubonic plague, and it was like a few hundred years, and you saw something else, and that was some decades, and pandemics. You see the flu, it was like, you know, a few months, and then, it just, so much going on. I thought I'd work through this. Now, these are slides I just put together, so that it's probably not the most polished lecture, but, we'll get through it together, I think. So the flu pandemic of 1918. What I did is, not so shamelessly, I went to a few websites and grabbed images, but then edited to try to tell you a story somewhat succinctly, okay, with images and so forth. This image was featured as the men of death. Well, this image is coming because this is it's World War I in our country. Well, for the Eastern world, there's a lot of people up at arms, and that's going on. So of course there's a lot of those kinds of political images. But here, what do we learn from this? So we get an idea of that point in history, which is what 1908, 100 years, about 100 years, but 90 years ago. Okay, heart disease still up there, right? Haven't really figured that one. Well, we know things we can help ourselves with heart disease. Cancer, still up there, 100 years ago, top of the list. Pneumonia was one. What's the next one? Nephritis? Kidney failure, wow. Okay, so flu is right up there. I don't know if that, we didn't list flu in the top 7. Okay, we seem to be controlling it pretty good, but the point of this is, it could change. These people in 1918 were kind of going like, and they were really caught, well, you try your own opinion. I think they were caught kind of not on guard. So influenza strikes. Throughout history, flu virus has mutated and caused pandemic global epidemics. We know this. It could happen again. That's the thing. So, and here, this old cliche maintained that influenza was a wonderful disease as it killed no one but provided doctors with lots of patients. Okay, that good old American humor, but what happened here in 1918? This all changed because of the mutation that was going on. 1918, the Public Health Service had just begun to require state local health departments to provide them with reports of diseases in their communities. Okay, so let's think about that. Up until that point, people get sick all the time. Okay, when do you report it and when don't you report it? When you go to the doctor and you get measles or something, somebody checks it off, case of measles. and people, and then you go to like the CDC, you can track diseases all the way through the country, all the time, everything, okay? Problem, that was a new idea. Hey, maybe we should keep track of who's dying from diseases, okay? And of that, flu wasn't a reportable disease. This quickly changed. But just thought, oh, that's the flu. You'll get over it, kind of. All right, so I'll go a lot into the timeline. I got some other animations for that. But in March of 1918, officials in Kansas sent out this report that they found 18 cases, and they're kind of worried, okay? It looks more severe than it should be, all right? All the way through this, people are wearing masks, and masks aren't really doing anything, but what else are you gonna do? You're basically helpless against this tiny, tiny particle. Oh, this didn't turn out as good as I thought. Well, anyway, what started to happen with the flu is that it started to bounce around with people, even in a short time. So that's why it went from an epidemic to a pandemic. It started in Kansas. They started to see it in Europe. Why? Because we're sending people back and forth, and we're fighting a world war. So people are in contact with each other, and let's face it, not under the best of conditions. Not eating well, certainly not very rested. People are shooting at you, and what were they doing? Trench warfare and that kind of stuff. And so we're seeing a spread there, and even though it's 1918, it's starting to spread through the world. It comes back, it goes forth. So we see these waves of the flu moving around. That's one of the things that scares us now. With SARS and so forth, something shows up in Asia one day, and it can be around the world by evening. As long as an airplane flight goes. If you travel on airplanes now, maybe you're aware that they've cut down the amount of circulable air. I mean, they don't suffocate you, but they used to turn over air, 6 to 9 times per hour. It's down to 1 or 2 times an hour, because it takes a lot of energy to heat that air. I mean, it's cold and you're flying. So you're breathing other people's air when you go on a flight. So, for instance, when I went to Brazil a few years ago, it was summer here, and they said, we're going to give you a flu shot. And at first I thought, do I need a flu shot? I said, A, you're traveling on a flight with whatever, a whole bunch of other people, so you're breathing everybody else's oxygen, and 2, it's winter where you're going. So, got it. So, people think about these things in a different manner. In our country, it's Boston where things start to show up. Okay, and where else? At the pier, where people are coming and going, and there's an exchange of folks, okay, and materials, things that folks are sneezing on, coughing on, moving this flu around. What's happening? 105 degree, that's Fahrenheit. 105 degree fevers, all of us know that's bad, okay. You start to feel lousy, 5 to 10% start to get massive pneumonia, aching muscles, that kind of things. Some people start to die, but at this point, it's still not, the signals aren't up. It's like, well, something's happening, we're not sure. Public experts start to find out that actually now what we'll see is in a matter of days, the whole days and weeks, the whole thing starts to really blow apart. It took a while for the flu to move across the country, but it did rapidly. I have an animation to show you. And like I said, in this day and age, it's not hard for us to imagine bugs moving around on trains and planes and automobiles and everything else. But in 1918, the country's kind of sparse in the middle, and even sparser up in Alaska. And I was curious about that, having lived there. Well, 2 things. One, with the Native Americans, people just weren't being very nice to that whole, people would get notes and stuff, they didn't pay a lot of attention to it. I was a little bit interested in what happened in Alaska, and it even made it to Juneau. This is September of 1918. We're starting to, what was the last one? We're talking about May or something. So in a few months, it did make it to Alaska. It did take a little bit longer. They tried to quarantine everything, and I didn't understand when I read it how you quarantine. They said they wouldn't let in sick people. I would imagine you'd have to be really sick. I mean, if you can carry flu. So I think, this was kind of a problem. But the disease went, and Eskimos, which are different than Native Americans, but they're a different race, succumbed to the disease quite traumatically. So. A little bit closer to home, we could talk about the flu for chapters and chapters. I thought, what was going on in Chicago? Chicago is, in the 1920s, this is some stats on it, we got a few million people, okay? We know about what the largest towns are in Illinois, too much has changed there. But what's really a big deal about Chicago, one, was, surprise, their attitude, but then two, that where they were, their relationship to their country, okay? They're saying, that, do I have this here? The public health, public health officials are saying, it doesn't seem like a big problem, we're not worried about it. Then, later even in that day, news wasn't traveling right, already you're seeing 374 cases, 14 deaths from flu, 45 from pneumonia, it was spreading fast. Look, 10 days later, you have hundreds of reported cases throughout Illinois. Okay, it's spreading everywhere. Chicago was an important city, even though things started on the East Coast. It was the railroad hub, so things were moving out of Chicago. So it was really started to do that. So the flu spread a lot through our neck of the woods, as they say. So. Now, interesting though, the officials said, "Oh, we have it under control." Just hard to understand disease, even today. It just wasn't that your muscles ache, you feel bad. It affected, people's health in a lot of different ways. People would have delirium. This guy fed his wife poison or something. You're not. It would take over your body, of course, and then you don't think straight. So, again, everyone's wearing masks. People started to pick up on things. I like this one, a law that if you sneeze without a handkerchief or you spitting is always a big deal. If people spit on the sidewalk or something, they would arrest you, which is like, good idea. You're getting the idea now. So, a lot of people spend all their time arresting people spitting, and that's kind of a smart thing. They said, well, and crime really didn't increase too much, because their crooks were sick too. So, it seemed like a good use of resources, but also they saw the vector thing going on. It wasn't very good. Not to dwell on this too much, but. Basically, even having funerals was a big deal. You couldn't take bodies into buildings. The whole idea of contamination. Funerals were either not administered or happened really quickly. And as you can see, they limited who could go, realizing that always older people and younger people, really young people, are more susceptible. Okay, so what's going on? This just gives an idea of the extent of it. I don't want to dwell on sadness more than I have to, but it's sometimes good to get an idea of what was going on. They just had dead people everywhere. Was basically what's that's saying. Not even time to treat some of these people. Once it started, it's like cholera. Once it gets you. You don't even have, cholera you can give antibiotics to. You can't even respond sometimes to antibiotics because it's eating your body up so fast. Some things, of course, it was related to, it was pneumonia, lungs collapsed, airways trapped. I didn't know this, but it really affected the stiffness of the body more than I had known. So in the end, we always tally up things, but what happened from this flu? It started out with, you thought, well, it's the flu. What happened? Okay, they thought at the time 25 million. Maybe maybe double that. Once people started looking around, trying to figure this all out, okay? And in there, a whole lot of Americans amongst the worldwide body count, all from something people were just breathing, okay? I mean, just a little bitty thing. So, in this time, people that, if you, like always, like we learned from Saban and those guys, if you did have immunity, or you could develop immunity, you did pretty good, and you didn't tend to be susceptible to subsequent things. And I like this one. This is from the, I think it's like from the 60s or something. For some reason, it made me think that. But people were still talking about what we talk. I don't know. I have this conversation every year with people. You gonna get the flu shot? Nah, nah. People are still wondering. Should you get it? Well, if you're 65 or older, what was it? Like 50 to 70% of the cases of people who had mortality from the flu last year were in that age bracket. Why is that? Why are old people susceptible to the flu? And they seem like nice people. I'm an older person. I mean,
Do they have like weaker immune systems then?
huh?
Do they have like weaker immune
Yeah, your
systems?
immune system, a lot of stuff starts going, Yeah, immune system's one of them. And that's the thing, the opposite is true with kids. I mean, they're developing an immune system. It's not as developed as yours. You've had, whatever, 20-some years to eat dirt and do all kinds of other things, get exposed to people and boost your immune system and get shots and so forth. So it's kind of the opposite of kids. They come out pretty pure, and we gotta get them, ready to meet the world. So anyway, I'm not here to tell you what to do with the flu shot. This is America. Do what you want. I would say just get informed. And this might be one of the questions for your cards. I mean, the question I'd be asked, it might be not only should I get the flu shot, where would I find information on that? Is it really important to me as a 25-year-old star athlete or something? I don't know. I would say probably less likely than someone who's older or more frail or something. So I always go to the CDC site. Okay, you know what I mean by the CDC? What is it? The Centers for Disease Control. Yeah, go there. Most up-to-date stuff. Get that going. So my little flu thing. I don't know why I get so captivated by that. I can also tell you. I mean, I'm old. I'm older than I think everybody in this room, but I don't remember people talking about the flu. I don't know if it's like when people come back from battle and they don't necessarily want to talk about the bad things in their life. They want to focus on the good things. But every once in a while, I would ask people, and like one of my aunts or something says, "Oh yeah, I remember their grandmother or their father or mother talking about it." But it just seems like one of those things that it's just under the rug. Does anyone know, like, it wouldn't be your parents, but anyone in your family ever say, "Oh, 1918, we lost great granddaddy to the," yeah, so there's something in there. But you look around, and a lot of us are going, "Oh, the flu." I don't know. So I think that's interesting to me that something can impact our country like that. As devastating as any type of thing. So, well, we know a lot about the flu. We look at this going, oh, it's an novel virus. We see a few things that we recognize. So what happened in there? We saw a few symptoms. I mean, the first day, you lose body temperature. It's a pneumonia. You feel rotten. Okay. Second day, cyanotic. Not like cyanide or cyanide. Like cyan. You turn kind of bluish. Or you ever see anybody right before they get seasick? They always say they turn green. You ever see anyone turn green? I always thought that was a joke, but people do turn green. And that's what they're talking about here. The thing is, fluid fills your lungs. We talked about the fatalities, and we have the estimate here now. This clays, yeah, here we go. I think this will cycle through, we get an idea. So we're talking, starting in September, going to October 5th, our timeline there took it past October. Let's cycle it in, I'll just play it. Okay, East Coast, West Coast. Good. So to me, this is fairly amazing that even in a country that doesn't have a lot of people, bang, bang. And what's the deal? Airways, right? It's easy to pick this up off of just a guardrail, walking up a stairway. Okay. We talked about, you can find out more about the flu. Like I say, I'm pretty interested. We can move on to other terribly devastating things to talk about early in the morning. Well, here's Ebola. Okay, Ebola we kind of find odd, because here's another virus, doesn't look like the little pictures in the book. Okay, it's just the way it is. Ebola is a negative strand virus, so it's a little different from the ones you've been talking about. Ebola, also known as hemorrhagic fever. It's severe and often fatal in humans, monkeys, gorillas, things that are related to us. The thing about hemorrhagic fever is simply this, it makes the capillaries leak. Okay, so blood starts running out of things, sometimes visibly, nose, eyes, things like that. Also though, your organs can just basically start to bleed. Now, not a happy topic, that's why people were so scared, when they heard that Ebola might have made it to our country. I mean, there was panic. Did anyone hear? Did you hear about that? Did anyone hear? Were you worried about it? Huh?
Was there only like one case in North America and then like?
There was, but for a while people were really wondering about
Yeah.
that. And then policies. See, did we really have a way of dealing with it? How do we safeguard it? And how that one case, then maybe several others. Then almost anyone who got sick, they had Ebola, right? You know how that went for a while. So, where do we see it? It's definitely in Africa. Here's Richard Preston. People like his books. They're dated now, but he wrote one, The Hot Zone, and it's popular. If you want to read something that has to do with viruses, he's a good writer. I'll stop. Okay, and this is, it's dramatic, but this is how he writes about it, how he talks about the disease. The good thing about Preston is he bases his work on fact. So, but he does kind of embellish things a little bit, but the Hot Zone does capture this. Basically, it's talking about blood coming on your body and different places. So. Yeah, 2014, we had a few links there. Okay, herpes. It just gets more and more interesting. Herpes is a double-stranded DNA virus, and we know herpes a lot from cold sores. Okay, can have a condition called shingles later on, which is terribly painful. But the thing about herpes that befuddles us is that this is a case where you have a long latent period. You might have a cold sore, you put something on it, it goes away, you go, oh, okay, that's great, it went away. It didn't, it's not like an infection that you probably killed and it went away. It went dormant, probably into the nerve cells, depends on where it's at, but usually in the oral area. Here's a new term for us, fomites. It's one of the things you'll read in the health literature. Fomites are inanimate objects that transfer diseases, table utensils, kissing, water glasses in this case. People are always asking, can I get sick by sitting on a toilet seat? I guess it's whatever relationship you're having with the toilet seat at the time. Generally, it's not a real option. But yeah, if you sit on a really slimy, terribly pukey looking anything, you might have problems. Use your judgment. But that would be a kind of fomite, although it's more unusual than you think. But anyway, sort of fever complications with herpes can get to be pretty advanced. Not only for the heart, but then you can start feeling very tired and so forth. And once again, this is one of these FYI, I'm not gonna ask this, but a lot of people start asking about the different types of herpes. We were just talking about this in general terms. It's part of a simplex, and there's different parts to that. I'm not gonna ask you that in this class. We kind of talked about more in nursing, but we're gonna move on. Okay, smallpox. I don't mean to laugh. These things are so depressing for me. Trying to become a medical microbiologist. Okay, smallpox, double-stranded DNA. Smallpox is interesting. I mean, not only does it spread really well, and it's really effective at killing most of the people it goes after, but it was also used as it depends on how you slant it, a form of terrorism, a form of genocide against the Native peoples in this country. No defense for it in this country. If you have I talked about guns, germs, and steel? Anybody haven't done that yet? No. Guns, Germs, and Steel. You don't have to read it, but again, another book that you want to talk about where it's maybe about 10 years old now, but it's a good read if you like to read and think about biology. This guy's thesis is that all countries, all societies had the potential to become great powers in the world. And as we look around, not, of course, everybody did. And I said, well, it's not, not necessarily IQ or, people are kind of people. What was it? Some of it was, well, who had the technology? Okay, who had the steel? Who started manufacturing things? Who had power? Okay, guns. All right, some people, some beliefs, guns were okay. Some people, okay. So you get the idea. And then the germs. And in Europe rose to power by this person's thesis because, at least when he's writing it, that Europeans had an active relationship with animals and animal husbandry. Now, is it just the Europeans? No. Asia, China, other places, but this is part of the thesis. And that, there was disease going across the species barrier. There was immunity happening over the centuries of history that are going on. And so Europeans, had some kind of immunity to some of these things. You come over and face an American, or the Native Americans that came through a whole different land route, a whole different type of upbringing, and no defense to this. Okay, so a good read for you if you're ever looking for that. We talked about, when I used to teach honors, we would pick books, actual books, and read them. So, okay, pox, you feel bad. Okay, that's for sure, but then it gets worse. Here's the deal. You get these symptoms, hands, circulation is a deal. You get a rash, okay, maculatus, that turns into papules or pimples, and then into pustules. The thing about pustules is they're full of white pus, white blood cells and stuff. They're trying to combat this virus, okay? So not only do you have the problem here of this poor person, succumbing to the disease, but if you're trying to take care of the disease, gross as it sounds, the pustules open up, either through health care or just pressure. And now you got this virus in a sticky little mass that can be moved to other people and other things. So, again, the relationship to population becomes a big deal with smallpox. Okay. We talked about Jenner. Okay. And another great story. Okay. If you want to read, you read great American stories, how, Teddy Roosevelt did this, and, somebody else, did this great heroic thing. The WHO, the World Health Organization, should go on the top of the list for this. They basically eradicate one of the worst viral diseases in the world, okay, in a very short period of time. Read the story if that kind of thing interests you. I mean, they basically are going around, they even go to places where there's war going on. And they say, well, can you guys give us long enough to inoculate everybody? I know you might shoot this guy in 5 minutes, but we're going to inoculate everybody anyway. I mean, it's an amazing, amazing story. And what's the upshot of smallpox now? Is smallpox around? No. There's no smallpox on Earth? That might be a good question. You're saying no, what do you know?
You just don't hear about cases of it anymore, really.
Yeah, as far as being on the street, as far as, the guy alongside you coming down from smallpox, right. In the world though, is there a little vial of smallpox or a place where we could go find smallpox?
Atlanta, it's at the CDC in Atlanta.
Yeah, there's a vial, and I thought there was another one in one of the culture collections in Europe, or maybe Russia. Yeah. And so people always say, well, we should destroy it. We know it's bad, what are we gonna learn from it? And now, at first I said, no, you can always learn something from it, but now, it basically sequenced and figured the whole thing out. I say you get rid of it. And then something, this is one I don't know, this is one of those, those Tom Clancy spy novels or something, but, it makes sense to me. People who died in the Yukon, they buried them either on or below the permafrost, could have not degraded enough where there'd be, pox that might be able to be harvested. And I don't know about that. I don't know. I would think that some terrorist somewhere probably would dug up Yukon Sam and gotten some of that stuff, if it was possible. And yet, I don't know everything. But I've heard that before, and I don't know the answer to it. If that's one of those old wives' tales, or it's like, is that really possible? That'd be a great question too. I'd love to know the answer. I probably should. I brought this in. I've been teaching this for a long time. West Nile is a big deal. Is West Nile a big deal now? It was big, and I think I got it. I wanted to get it. I was younger. The best way to get used to a virus is just get hit by it. But if you worked on the river, you probably did, because the mosquito was moving up and down the Illinois River pretty well a few years ago. I heard that there was about a half a dozen cases this year in Illinois. Is anyone else? You're all from the state. Anyone heard about anyone reading the news? West Nile was still around? No? Yeah, anybody? Okay, well, that's another good question. Is West Nile still around? Okay, anyway, we know it's around, it's a complex thing. It came in through the East Coast, okay? And the big deal with West Nile is that it's moved around by these little blood-sucking vectors that are basically hypodermic needles. So I was Jim and I were working in New York when West Nile first started coming on deck. And the scientist that was working with it was working at the museum, and all these crows and stuff were starting to die. In fact, I remember, I spent a lot of time outside. I'm first now starting to hear a lot more crows, in this area too, crows and the cervidaes were getting, that was their ultimate host, as could be other things. But basically, even if you could knock out the human population, there was a reservoir. That's something that we learned about disease. There's a reservoir here, just like the monkeys of Ebola, that can then serve the vector to get back to you. Okay, you're a dead-end carrier. You don't tend to move it along, but other things keep it around. Viruses and cancer. Let's talk a little bit about that. Another very popular subject. People like to know, how do I get cancer? There's a lot of ways to get cancer. We talk about the idea of what cancer is, right? Undifferentiated, basically uncontrolled, unregulated growth of the cell. So we have that. You can have transformation from viruses, basically. Let me see if this is the slide I'm looking for. Well, we already went through that, I guess. No, I guess I had that slide earlier. A virus can infect the cell and basically just fuse with it, run its course, either destroy the cell or fuse and stay with it and stay latent, or it can transform the cell and then change the factors that are growing in the cells. So viruses can account for about 20% of the known cancers, so it is a viable vector. Not all viruses affect cells the same way. I don't really want to talk about that. Okay, retrovirus. retroviruses, I do want to talk about that. You have 15 minutes. Are you guys getting questions, or do you need time for questions? Because retroviruses will probably take a good 10, 15 minutes, about 10 minutes to go through. Do you have a question? Did you figure out anything? Do you want some time to talk to your friends about questions? Or do you want to just go through lecture a little bit more? I want to get through retroviruses today or Tuesday. Who wants to think a little bit about questions? Who needs time? Oh, no one. Okay, then we'll talk about retroviruses. Okay, the big deal about retroviruses is the reverse transcriptase thing with these viruses. The RNA viruses that have the RNA genome, okay, have 2 strands of it. They do make DNA from RNA. There are other things that do that, but this was a big deal to discover this, that something went backwards in that dogma. So I know I've probably said that a few more times, but that's kind of a big deal, all right? So it's an envelope virus, and that's part of the problem, in that they have structural proteins that can change. We'll talk about that in a minute, that it's hard to go after a retrovirus. And we also have other proteins that are very specific in that tiny genome that help the retrovirus to work, not only reverse transcriptase and integrase that allows the viral genome to get into the host genome, but also other structural proteins. And then it's linked to cancer, that's true. Human immunodeficiency virus is the virus, it's the cause of AIDS. Some people mix up those terms. You guys probably don't, but HIV is the virus, and AIDS is the disease, the syndrome. The process of the retrovirus is a lot that we've seen before, but as far as getting into the cell, but then removal of the virion envelope at the membrane, reverse transcriptase then makes double-stranded DNA, and from that then you have expression of the genomes when it's integrated as a provirus. All of these things should kind of look familiar from our previous talk. And then it goes through that time series of producing a nucleocapsid, picking up membrane information. A lot of times it'll bud near where it budded before, get both the spikes it brought in. It might grab some of the spikes from the host, and then you get that enveloped aspect, that membrane along with those protein spikes, kind of receptor kind of things that are sitting at the surface of it. So in a way, we're seeing a lot of the same thing that we saw with the animal types of mechanism. It's just that that initial step kind of throws us. It's like, I haven't seen that before. I'm making DNA first. Usually I'm either making more plus RNA, okay, sense, or I have negative sense, I gotta make positive sense, or I have DNA that can make positive sense. This is one of those cases that, I got RNA, I'm going back, to make the double-stranded DNA so that can be incorporated. Kind of a cool different thing. Go past that. There's different ways of going at trying to get rid of HIV, and you see this in a lot of the general approaches of getting rid of viruses in humans. We have a few of them here. One of them is to try to attack the virus so you change the receptors so it won't attach. If you think about that, makes sense. If I can't get the virus to attach, it just keeps floating around, it won't infect the cell. Okay, so vaccines that produce antibodies that bind to the viral source don't work. The problem here is that because HIV keeps changing. Okay, in other cases, going after animal viruses, getting antibodies to do this job works. Why don't we have an HIV virus? They've tried this type of approach, but it's also common. Okay, another approach, reverse transcriptase in drugs. Once the cell, shown here in yellow, is converted into DNA, you can find a drug that helps to fight the reverse transcriptase inhibitor. And these letters and numbers don't mean anything to any of us unless you look them up on internet or something. This is just saying that people have tried to go after that enzyme. Wouldn't that be great if the genome can't express itself? And, you know, they tried some success. Okay, block the viral RNA and DNA. It wouldn't be effective. It can't express its genes. Okay. Once again, that only had limited success. DNA can be integrated. The virus has its own enzyme called integrase that facilitates the incorporation. It'd be good to go after that kind of thing. That has limited success. If the lymphocytes turn on, then nothing happens to the viral DNA. Wait, I lost your hand. Yeah, so that's the integration. The virus has its own enzyme integrase, integrates through the DNA, makes its RNA. If the lymphocyte is not turned on, then nothing happens to the viral DNA. So going after the lymphocyte would make. So if the lymphocyte is activated, then transcription of the viral DNA begins, resulting in a product of multiple copies of viral DNA. So going after integrase would be the idea, or the idea of trying not to get the genome expressed is the idea here. Viral proteases is another aspect of trying to short circuit the infection. Viral RNA is translated into a polypeptide sequence that includes reverse transcriptase, protease, and integrase. So all those different enzymes are expressed. If you could just cut them up before they could express themselves, that'd be another idea. So that's a post-translation type of approach. Okay, and that's what that says. Inhibitors of this viral protease can be used to fight HIV by blocking the protease integration mechanism. Okay. The problem, again, mutations, they get when something like this to work, it mutates, the virus changes, it's no longer effective. In the end, with HIV, at least the last I read about it, is multiple approaches are showing some promise. I don't know, I don't stay up on the latest HIV, but I don't think there's any one magic drug of this. I've had people in my life affected by this disease, and I've not heard anything exactly either. So, the last part that could affect it, viral RNA and associated proteins are packaged and released. It takes the portion of the site membrane with it, as we already talked about. Budding viruses are often exactly like the original, and so it makes them difficult. That doesn't really change. Taking part of the signal and moving it along with the virus makes it hard to hunt. So HIV becomes a problem. Last two ideas, viriyoids. If viruses aren't living, and I argue that they're not, that they're host parasites, viriyoids, I don't think you make much of a they're basically just RNA, okay? And they're not very long RNA. 200, it's not even really a gene. You need about 1,000 to get a respectable gene, okay? These things basically can insert themselves into different organisms and just cause disease, okay? Not really clearly understood how viriyoids work, okay? A few times they use them in plants. There's a virioid on what is the tomato plant that people have isolated. It really is quite variable. The other one that we talk about a lot more, probably because it's a big deal, is prion disease. Some people say prion. I personally don't care. It's tomato to me. But here we have a small peptide, okay? There's no real formal capsid. There's no genome that goes with this, okay? And it can affect people. Generally, if you eat, most of it, I said to somebody, go eat some brains. A lot of us wouldn't say, well, I'm not a zombie. I mean, at first you think, but brain tissue is part of cuisines, sweet breads and so forth. That's a good way of transmitting it, for one thing. What they think prions do is misfolding, known to cause disease in animals by causing misfolding of proteins. So one theory is that they're chaperone proteins that don't work. So you get the chaperones help to fold different proteins. Those proteins don't work because the chaperone isn't working, and therefore you get this mis-expression of something, as close as you can get on that. So, hard to know exactly how it works. Infectious prion disease, pathogenic form of protein, is transmitted between animals and humans. Sporadic, random misfolding of a normal, healthy prion protein. Okay, inherited mutagen in prion gene yields a protein that change from more often from the disease causing form. Basically, people are more concerned about the infection prion disease, and like they have in Jacob Creutzfeldt disease here. You have the basically the mad cow disease in humans, the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. You have the prion that's able to make it to the nervous tissue and then cause anything from severe discomfort, wasting, or death. Some people say that, like, if you're losing body weight, that's not part, that's different than something infecting your brain. Usually if something's infecting your brain, you start to lose body weight. So it is a neurotropic disease. So at this point is, if it happens with cows, makes their brains in cephalopathy, it's mad cow disease. With people, it shows up as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which is documented actually. One that we talk about a lot in different parts of the country, but also is in Illinois, is chronic wasting disease. Okay, and this is a case, as I have tracked it, it seems to have showed up in the Midwest from herds of deer that I think were grown on a farm in Colorado. And basically they were imported or exported, whatever they're doing with them. But basically that seems to be where it emanated, but why it emanated there or why it started there, I haven't been able to find it out. Maybe some of you know. The transmission is hard to know about. Generally, they think, touching nervous tissue, saliva can transmit at least between different animals, so they don't want eating in high masses together. And the problem with chronic wasting disease is there's not clear links between what it does in herds and what it does to people. Some cases they say, yeah, there's been several cases recorded. If you dig a little deeper, they're like, well, they're not documented cases. And maybe you guys know something different. I don't know. That's where I've seen that. And we have deer running around here. They're all around the campus. We're going to get chronic wasting disease from them. I don't think so. Yeah. So that's the end of viruses, prions, and viroids. What I want you to do with your card is, does everyone have a question? Do you have a question? Who's a question they want to read out real quick? One got one that they think is good? Good.
I just ran out of this, because you were talking about the vaccine for the flu. Just because the flu can mutate, do you think those with the flu vaccine are safe from an epidemic if it does happen? If not, then what can we do to prevent it? And if an epidemic happens, how can we stay safe from it?
That's a great question. Yeah. Good. Anyone else? Okay, don't run out of the door. Hand me your card. Let's see how this is gonna work. Get a question down. You had an hour and a quarter. Get something down. I didn't spring this on you. Okay. Okay, hand up your cards. Come on. You still have one more part of this assignment to do, and I know you have places to go, and I really don't want to hold you up from that. I did that once already, and I still am. Okay.